Welcome in Provence. We are in the village of Forcalquier, in the Loire mountain area, which is well known for the variety and intensity of its flora. Today, we are harvesting the wormwood, also known as Artemisia absinthium in Latin. There are many different kinds of Artemisia plants, which have various properties. This one grows in temperate areas, often in screes and alongside paths. From a few meters high up to 1,500 meters high. The plant is relatively common. It is characterized by its yellow little flowers, which bloom between the end of June and the middle of August. The leaves are very chopped. They have hairs on their inferior side, and they are very aromatic, with a quite strong smell and a bitter taste. As for our use, which is to make spirits, we only pick up the highest part of the leaves and flowers. Then we strip the plant to work mainly with the leaves. The story of absinthe is actually very rich, and we are lucky to have Didier, who knows everything about the story of Forcalquier and Upper Provence, but who is also an expert of the history of absinthe.
The first liquor of distilled wormwood with anise and fennel was reported in the late 18th century. We owe the recipe to a Swiss herbalist woman who lived in the Val de Travers region. She made an elixir only for a therapeutic use. This product was prescribed and distributed by Dr. Ordinier, who used to travel in the Val de Travers by horse. In 1797, Henriette Henriot sold her recipe to Major Duby. The elixir had lost its therapeutic properties, but there were already a lot of enthusiasts who had started to consume this product, so the recipe had market value. In 1798, Major Duby built the first absinthe liquor factory and found Henry Louis Pernod as an associate. To respond to the growing French demand, Henry Louis Pernod built another factory in Pontellier in 1805. Until 1830, the demand is slowly growing and mainly coming from one region in France. Then, as French soldiers colonized Algeria, their officers promoted the idea of putting a few drops of absinthe in their beverage in order to heal some diseases such as malaria, and maybe also to give them some courage to go on the battlefield. In the meantime, from the officers to the bourgeois, and then to the artists, the liquor became more and more famous and present in Paris cafes. Some very famous artists were inspired by the absinthe, such as Degas, Manet, Victor Oliva, Van Gogh, and many more. Writers and poets too, Verlet, Rimbaud, Baudelaire, Edgar Poe, etc. They were all very fond of absinthe, as shown by their art, well known around the world. The green absinthe fairy had been a great source of inspiration. Its many significations sustained the artist's fantasies. They often described or painted the fairy as enchanting. She also embodies the presumed imaginary and magical properties of the absinthe elixir. In 1870, demand booms. Between 1880 and 1914, we go from a consumption of 700,000 liters to 36 million liters. People gathered between 5 and 7 p.m. to have a drink, to take the apéritif. Starting from there, absinthe became the most frequent drink, representing almost 80% of the drinks. So we called this time slot the green hour, even though people would also drink other beverages. But then we started noticing a lack of good quality products, and adulterated absinthes became more and more frequent. Some absinthes would be colorated with copper sulfate or even lead sulfate. Those products, which were rot-gut liquors, as Zola said in his book Les Sommiers, made people really ill. At this time, a glass of absinthe is cheaper than a glass of wine. The reason why was French vines had been destroyed by a disease, making wine rare. So winemakers feared that absinthe might replace wine for good. Supported by various institutions and by the Catholic Church, they started a movement against absinthe, leading to a decree signed by the French president on March 17th of 1915. It was then forbidden to produce, distribute, or drink absinthe. Between 1915 and 1988, given that there was no more absinthe, it's the Paste Golden Age. In 1988, the French government authorized the use of Thujaune with a limit of 10 or 35 ppm, but we still can't use the name absinthe, only spirits with absinthe plants. It's only in 2010 that it's authorized again. As for today, absinthe didn't lose its power of attraction and still is a great source of inspiration for young artists such as Ron English and Pakovsky. The new generations care for its history and talk about it in comics. And of course, we talk about it on social networks. The wormwood is so bitter that it would be impossible to drink it pure, which is why it has always been associated to other plants. Now I'm going to let Yves, our distiller, introduce you to those plants that he works with.